Iowa, of course, fresh off a 41-10 victory over Western Michigan after a very strange first half that featured a weather delay and one of Iowa's best players, maybe their best offensive player, and Luke LayShawn going down with an injury.
Ask Kirk after the game about the injuries. He was I think somewhat forthcoming about Luke. He didn't say specifically, but I think we all know it's major and it's season ending. It's an ankle. Asked him about Jazz Patterson and Caleb Johnson, and he just said that kind of like tweaks to things. Caleb's is an ankle, I know that, and he's probably going to miss a little more time. It's more of the high ankle variety, from what I understand. So that's going to take a little bit of time. Jazz was something that apparently he aggravated last week, like a foot thing of some sort. He was late coming out after the lightning delay. So I don't know if he kind of popped out and loosened up and something didn't feel right. I know he took some good shots too early in the game, running really hard. But I think those guys were, I think there's a good chance Jazz probably gets ready for this week against Penn State, but I think there's almost no chance that you're going to see Caleb playing with a high ankle. He was limping around on the sidelines before the game. So if he's limping still at this point, it's very unlikely he's going to go. We did talk to Kirk about going for it late, and he kind of talked more about second team line in there and wanting to find out something about those guys. Also wanting to learn more about Deacon Hill and how he's able to run an offense in a situation like that. So that was his point of view of why he did what he did late in the game in terms of kind of putting the foot on the gas a little bit and scoring more points. So that's his view. I know others might not share that view, and it might be controversial. But I think that's when you enter into a deal like they did for
Correct.
Brian. This is what it's going to be like all year, guys. It's just going to be like this every time they tack on a late touchdown. It's going to be about, they just did that for Brian. So it's just going to be the nature of the beast.
Yeah, and fair enough. They like you said, they did it themselves by making this public and coming out with the bar. So just to go back to Luke LayShawn, I did hear Ed Podolak, Gary Dolphin talking after the game, and what they were saying is that according to Rob Brooks and what he had gathered on the sideline, they didn't think it was knee. They thought it was high ankle, perhaps, for Luke. Have you heard one or the other on that? He was in a boot, obviously, on the sidelines.
Yeah, the people that I've talked to think it's broken, think it was a broken ankle, but because something was kind of hurting or looked like it was broken. So he was in a boot. He was in a full boot on the sidelines. So we'll see. He said they were going to do further examinations on him in the coming days. So maybe we'll get more of a definitive answer, but I'm just going to be real surprised if we see him play again this year.
Yeah. My only thought on that when I saw it is people were immediately talking, is it a compound fracture? Don, if it was a compound fracture, would he have come back to the sidelines?
Gosh, I don't know. Maybe they have different philosophy about those kind of things. I would suspect if there's any way he could be safely on the sideline, they would allow him to do it. But an actual determined break on the spot, if they knew it was a break, maybe not. That's a good question. The damage has already been done, I guess you could argue at that point. If he was going to be on the sideline, of course, he was going to be as far back as he could be to be sure he didn't get rolled up when the players storm off the field. But if it was an absolute compound fracture, maybe he would not have come back out. And I think you might be right.
Tom, the disadvantage we have when we bring you on here for a few minutes after availability with Kirk each week is I don't know what questions were asked. So I'm going to kind of take a stab at some of these. I'm curious if the subject of explosive plays was brought up, because Phil Parker, obviously one of the best in the business at limiting explosive plays, certainly super explosive plays. And Western Michigan got Iowa a few times in that first half. Did that get brought up at all to Kirk?
Yeah, it did. It also got brought up to the players. We talked to them. You guys will find this kind of funny because Phil Parker is kind of a fiery character on the sidelines. So I asked Jay Higgins about this after the game. I said, what was he like? And, because that 64-yard touchdown happened right before the lightning delay. So you're thinking Phil is going to be in that locker room and he's going to be breathing fire, right? He's going to be coming after the guys. And there's Jay was like, surprisingly, he was pretty calm. And he's been kind of calm all year. So I think, he wasn't happy, but I think he's dealing with it. I think the big thing is one of the things that Jay kind of hinted at was maybe some of the guys with those explosive plays were, I wouldn't say freelancing, but maybe not following what they were supposed to do. And in the second half, they came out and everybody's like, we got to stop screwing around and just do our jobs and do them the right way. And if you do that, then you don't give up big plays. And sure enough, I think, what did they give up in the second half? Like 35 yards, 40 yards, I think, a total offense. They throttled them pretty much in the second half. So, shut them down, turned it over.
We were fortunate to have a touchdown call back too. Let's not forget.
Yes, yeah. That was a cure, and Jamari fell down on that play, and that certainly helped their cause. But it also helped that they had an illegal formation on the play to get it called back. Otherwise, it would have been a 60-yard touchdown.
Right. Not that it would have changed the outcome of the game, but it would have been embarrassing just to give up another long touchdown.
Yes.
Yep. I don't know if you got to talk to. Did you talk to LayShawn at all?
Yes, we did.
What a turnaround! I mean, I talked about last week, one carry last week, and I even speculated, he dinged up last week, and obviously it was the week of Jazz Patterson, and we got a heavy dose of Caleb Johnson. But with both those guys dinged up today, LayShawn was the guy, and man, he showed out. What was his demeanor like, and what did he? I mean, keeping your head up in the last couple of weeks when you don't get as many touches has to be a challenge.
Yeah, he's just like, hey, we got a good room, and he always says like everybody's going to eat here, kind of thing. Everybody's going to get an opportunity, and he's super high on Kamari, TJ Washington, very high on him too. And I don't know if they showed it on TV, but boy, the Max White touchdown just set off such a great celebration on the sidelines. Everybody was just so happy for that guy because he's such a team guy. And you want to see a guy like that have a moment like that, because that may end up being his only touchdown in his career, and might end up being his only carry of the rest of his career. We don't know. So, just to see that for that kid, that's why I always I'm like, I'm not going to be too upset about them tacking on a touchdown, because I know Max White, and I know the type of kid he is, and the type of person he is. He's not one of these guys that's out there trying to thump his chest and do everything. He's a total team guy. And the way his teammates reacted tells me everything about the quality of human being he is.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Don, anything to add to that, just based on...
I do have a question, Tom. Toward the end of the half, let's go back toward the end of the half. It's 14-10.
Yep.
And we're already in field goal range. I think it was 3rd and 10, maybe on the plus 31. So we're already in position to kick a field goal, and that would have been a big score at the time. I was honestly surprised. I thought on 3rd and 10, we'd spread people out and run the ball, probably pick up 5, at least based on what had happened up until then. And now a 48-yard field goal would turn into an even more makeable 43-yard field goal.
Yep.
And then when we threw the ball and threw the pick, I was just curious if that was discussed.
It wasn't, but yeah, it wasn't really. But I'll tell you, Brian was running hot at that point on the sidelines because he did not like that decision by Cade. And I think Cade tried to.
Is that what he was mad at, Tom? I couldn't tell.
Yeah,
they showed him the monitor that he was throwing. He threw the headset and he was yelling profanities. I couldn't tell who his anger was directed.
Well, I think he was frustrated with just like why don't we just, if you're going to, don't throw it into double coverage,
Right.
and I think that's probably what it was more than anything else, because you don't want to, you want to go into the halftime, Don, you know this very well. You want to go into it with momentum. You don't want to go it with giving them momentum, and that gave them momentum going into halftime.
Right.
When you get, even if you get 3, you're feeling better about yourself going into the break.
Right. Kay would not have had a chance to upset Brian, of course, if that particular play had been called.
Yeah.
So it all started with the decision to try to put it in the end zone. But I just thought, based on circumstance, let's finish the half with momentum.
Yeah.
Let's kick it and let's be up by 7.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I think you just get the points.
I just felt like at 14-10, I jumped on a quick live stream on the channel, and I said, there's no way Iowa loses this game. I mean, you just felt like 14-10, and a lot went wrong in that first half, and you knew Phil was going to have clean up those mistakes by his DBs, and certainly they did that, shut them out in the second half. So, Tom, appreciate you jumping on. Did I miss anything that was noteworthy from the Kirk Ferentz presser or any of the players?
Not really. I think it's going to be an interesting Tuesday as you find out more about these injuries, but that just makes the task even harder for Iowa. Already an uphill battle going to Happy Valley against one of the best teams in the country this year, and now you're going to have to do it really shorthanded. Really impressed with the offensive line. I mean, they got a great push today, and they were able to sustain those blocks and knock off 8, 10, 12 yards a clip. And I think that's progress. Now, the test will be, can you do something even close to that next week? Because that's, today might have been JV. You're getting the varsity next Saturday, right, Don?
That's true. It's hard to measure the difference in the 2 D lines, but it's safe to say it'll be much more difficult to get that done next week than it was this week.